Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Our goal here is to review the market generated information in a holistic fashion. We're intimately following the auctions narrative of both ES and NQ. If we have time, we'll theorize and add additional commentary towards the end. We did speculate in the market today. Please see our uploaded recording. It contains my real time analysis. I use these archives as a tool for my professional development. All right, perfect. Let's get started. So, we'll start off with our narrative and our summary questions. Not really too much has changed. If we look at our daily candles, you can see we're still within this inside bar from Friday, which is non-farm payrolls. And since we are still within that bar of non-farm payrolls, we still have that same chart up. So you can kind of get a sneak peek and see how we started. So I won't spoil it. But where we're coming from, we're still in the same down bar as non-farm payroll. So really not much has changed. So we're not going to put too much into this. At least for today, you can look at the video yesterday because the same applies here. We're going to look more at the details. So where we're coming from, we're still coming from the bear flag with the non-farm payrolls on Friday. Not too much has changed. The goal was for the sellers to keep price within the bar, and the goal for the buyers was to potentially break out of this bar. Fairly simple. We're still in the same bar. We're just balancing near the top of the range of the impulse candle. Same situation for the ES, same for the NQ. So really not too much has changed. So for us to get a better understanding of how the market actually moved, there is really nothing on the docket for today, not for the economic calendar, not really for earnings. LOL at GameStop. Um, I think they missed a little bit, and I think they're down like a couple of percent for the overnight. So really not too much there. So I mean, let's see if we can, hopefully we can look a little deeper and grasp some context because yeah, not much has changed. We're still in this inside bar, but I'm sure there's some information that we can find. So looking at the actual delta and the footprint for the daily, you can see we had our sellers here. There's a fair amount that's in the middle, and that's where the volume point of control was. We'll look at the intraday footprint a little later and see if we can glean any information there. Notice all of the buyers near the top of the day, top of the range, and we came back later in the session. It's not recorded, but we did watch this in real time. It was just a wall of passive sellers here, a lot of icebergs. And notice the max for the delta was 26K, and the minimum was 8,000, and we finished at 23K. So very strong finish for the buyers. A lot of energy that was put forth in this area here near the highs. So say what you want to about that. They are still below. We're still channeling lower. Building energy. Volume is fairly decent, about the same as yesterday. And we already made our note about the leftover buyers. So if we look at the NQ, I would imagine it's going to be the same situation. Range was essentially 300 and about 60 for the S&P 500. So we have our delta here, which is we're just going to call this even for the most part. Um, about 2,000 to the up, 3,000 to the lower side. Sellers tried, couldn't really finish the fight. We ended up neutral. Really not too much to say here. Same situation. We're still channeling lower. All right, so we looked at the footprint, so we can get a good idea there. We'll look at the sector tracker. You can see S&P 500 was up 45 basis points. Interesting to see finance down. They were more of the outperformers, I believe, earlier in the week. And to see them down like this was a little surprising. We were looking to them and healthcare to hopefully hold the market up if there was going to be an issue from the consumer discretionaries and the technology sector. But technology and discretionary, they really held it together. The OGs really held it down. Um, yeah, yeah. So the big heavy hitters did their job. Oracle's up, almost 12%. Microsoft, Nvidia, Apple pretty much finished even. Utilities for our defensive portions. Consumer discretionary, a lot of this was Tesla, Amazon. Same thing with Home Depot. Yeah, just nice overall. Communication is pretty much broke even. It's interesting to see that this financials, the majority of this appears to be Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe something to look into. But okay, cool. So we have a little context of how we are on the sector tracker for the breadth and how the buyers moved around on the footprint with the delta. Let's see if we can look at the market profile for a little better structure. So again, not really too much has changed. We're now hovering above this contract premium area, which is something that we've been following for a while. Unfortunately, we haven't really broke above and stayed above, or broke below and stayed below for too long. So say what you will about that, but really not too much is happening here. We're just kind of balancing here. You know, if you put these two together, which is today and yesterday for this week, fits in perfectly over here. And notice it's just a lot of two-way trading, wide ranges, trying to find some balance. Those same areas for Tuesday and Wednesday, we still have this overhead supply near these 55.20s to these 40s. So we couldn't reach there today. The furthest we got was 55.08, and pretty much kind of just sold back down a little bit. Two-way trading again. We'll look at this on the candles for the 3 minutes, but hit up these five above this 5,000, kind of hit a wall, sold off to the bottom of this range, and we ended up coming right back up. So again, this area is gray. We'll imagine we're going to see some two-way trading, maybe wider ranges here as we fill in these gaps, and just this high volume node for the composite as well. So this definitely has a lot of history. These 54.50s to the 54.90s. So about 50 points of range of opportunity really for both sides. If we look at the NQ, it's going to be the same situation, same concept. We have our gray zone here, but except it's just low volume node for the last week and for the composite as well that goes back to April, with the same overhead supply above us, above the let's call it the high 800s, around the 900 zone. So same situation here, overhead supply. We're kind of two-way trading here. If you end up merging these, you'll notice that they're just filling in those gaps. And we're just here bear flagging all the volume and a lot of TPO, a lot of time just spent here. So again, not really too much to say. Not much has changed. We're in the same situation as yesterday. All right, so let's look at the intraday. So if we can glean a little more. All right, let's see. So for the intraday, so again, really not too much. You know, we're still within that inside bar, but I do like the way that these buyers are trying to hold up prices. This fits in pretty perfectly. It's a little nicer on the S&P 500. So something I was looking at earlier, but essentially sideways, sideways. You had our sellers as soon as we broke below. You had our sellers just really trying to force it down. You can notice the delta here, negative 2K. We ended up closing above them, ended up being squeezed until the end of the session. Essentially, that's what happened. High delta, minimum delta, and then we start having some maxing out to the upside. So fairly simple, really not too much to show there. We're still within this inside bar overall from this Friday. But other than that, we closed past all those, the majority of those sellers. So things may get a little lighter um, as far as the interest, but we'll see. We need more information. Looking at the S&P 500, this is the filling in that I was talking about. Um, just some pretty clean price action. You know, just filling in these gaps here, filling in those gaps there, filling this in. So I mean, you can kind of say what you want to say about that, but you know, buyers are doing their best to really try to hold these prices. But we have a lot of buyers and a lot of effort that's being exerted on the buy side. So something interesting. You know, we need more information to uh, to kind of speculate from that. Same situation here for the 138-minute candle. You can kind of see how we're rising up. Interesting close here, and then reversed. Curious if we're going to see any kind of upside here with that resistance above us, and we're pretty much in the clear. Green skies at this moment. We're past this major resistance. We closed at it, but we're not seeing any kind of follow through. Looking at it from the NQ, same situation. Except we're right at that resistance zone that we created. So we'll look at the 3 minutes on the for the candles. Looking at the S&P 500. So the context, again, we had our Sunday night drift up with our RTH two-way trading, finding support within that range and closing well above the IB high for the ES and right at the IB for the NQ. So as we drift into the overnight, testing the prior mid, testing the prior IB low, testing the IB low, and we broke it, still within the prior day's range and the overnight. Find more support. As we're finding more support, same situation. We just kind of test lower and lower, and we find more support. And notice that the NQ was able to close within their range, as was the ES. The majority of the ground that they gave up was from this overnight session, which they did not make a new low, though the S&P 500 did. So say what you want about this and who's weaker and who's stronger, I'm not really sure, but we do know that they are finding support within their ranges and they're starting to grind up. And again, as we've been mentioning, this is a hallmark of a bull market and kind of a bull trend. But within the context of what we have, this is happening within the prior days or Friday's non-farm payroll continuation with high volume, the most volume we've seen since the beginning of April. So again, context matters. We need more information, essentially. So looking a little deeper, we'll look at the NASDAQ. We can find really anything that kind of stood out. Again, we were looking at this in real time, but essentially we will hide this drawings. But essentially we just two-way traded, closed at the open, two-way traded, two-way traded, pretty much closed at the open, right above the IB mid. Two-way trading, new low, two-way trading, right back at the mid, and found our impulse lower. That's where we found support for the prior day, and pretty much just drifted above. And that's where we found ourselves in the non-farm payrolls range again. So fairly simple. Basically the same situation here for the ES, except they were a bit weaker. Notice the two-way trading, but we close under the open near the IB low. Big engulfing candle to the downside, much more excursion to the downside than the NASDAQ. Came back up to the initial balance low, sold off. Again, these are 3-minute candles. We tried 1, 2, 3, then we gave up. So again, say what you want about that. Once they gave up, closed below this 5 smoothing average, kicked out of this non-farm payrolls range, coiling, impulse. Does this not look familiar? Impulse, coiling, impulse, impulse, coiling, impulse. I don't know. I think that's just a cool example of a fractal, if I'm understanding that correctly. This is what we should have seen from the daily candles for the bears. But anyways, the more consolidation, once they got above the 5 smoothing average on the 3-minute, they pretty much just coasted up there to get their way back into the range of the non-farm payrolls. And that's pretty much all she wrote. Close above the open, and now we're just kind of drifting sideways in the overnight so far. So really not too much, just a little shorter today. Again, we need more information. We do have CPI tomorrow. So, I mean, ideally, we were expecting to see just really two-way trading and just balancing as we head into the CPI for tomorrow. So, again, that is 8:30 Eastern in the morning. So, good luck. Try not to trade it exactly. If you don't have a plan, just really be prepared for anything. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and cut it short. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Ideally, I will have the CPI recorded. Again, we are on the West Coast, so just getting up and being prepared and having that recorded, and for us to be unbiased coming into the session, it's a lot, but we'll see what we can do. Good night.